Welcome to Your Epic Pursuit. I'm Mike Mooney, and this is a space where we dive into inspiring and real conversations with people to explore their journeys of leadership and performance. And we're going to look at the conversation today through that epic lens of excellence, presence, intentionality, and curiosity. And you'll, as usual, hear threads of those themes being woven through the conversation that we have today. And the goal that we have is really quite simple. We want to provide you with unique insights and actionable tools that will help accelerate your pursuit. And joining us today, I'm thrilled the guests that we have and the things we're going to learn, but we have Tim Flanagan with us. He is a third-generation leader at MassMutual and the general agent at the Pelora Group, one of the largest and longest-standing financial services firms in Charlotte, North Carolina. Tim has been recognized for his leadership and community impact over the years, including being named among Charlotte's 40 under 40 leaders and most admired CEOs, which is not surprising after you hear more of our conversation. His firm has repeatedly earned accolades as one of Charlotte's best places to work. And aside from his professional achievements, I know personally that he considers his family his greatest gift and achievement. Tim is definitely a human who walks his talk every day and someone that I am proud to call a friend. Tim, welcome to today's show, and thank you so much for making time to be with us.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. That was a wonderful introduction. And also, it is an honor to be with you today in your audience. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you, my friend. I love having people on with the life experience, the work experience, and more importantly, the wisdom of how you can now reflect, right? And look at the experiences and more importantly, too, how you keep putting them to use. So when I reached out to you, I've had fingers crossed that that you would say yes to join us, man. And so thank you. So jumping into the conversation, I'd love to know what's something that you have going on in your work or your life right now that's got you really excited.
From a work perspective, a few things. It's a dynamic time to be in business. The financial services industry is
Yeah.
rapidly evolving, like it seems every industry is, both from a standpoint of AI, the economy, changing dynamics in the workforce, all that. One of the things my partner and I are really working on with our team, and I will hold this book up, The Science of Scaling, really looking at our business through a different lens. We run our business on EOS. There's this whole idea of a 10-year vision in EOS. The science of scaling basically says, what if you were to make that vision a reality in the next 2 or 3 years?
Oh,
And
wow.
what is exciting to me about that is you cannot think incrementally if you do that. You have to really start questioning a lot of things. So that's exciting because you get to apply a lot of curiosity
Yeah.
and again, start to really kind of push the envelope about what's essential and what really is the purpose of your business and what are you trying to accomplish. So I'd say
Yeah.
on the business side, Mike, that's it. And then I am blessed to have two beautiful granddaughters born 5 weeks apart this year,
Wow.
end of the summer, early fall. They are right here in Charlotte, so I get to see them often. And as much as I heard being a grandparent was really cool, it's 10 times better than I thought it would be. So that's
That
cool
that
for us
is
personally.
that
Yeah,
is awesome. That is awesome. Well, beautiful gifts nonetheless, and the fact that they're
big
here in
time.
Charlotte, right?
Even better. Yep.
That
Yep.
that's a blessing.
Truly
That's
blessed. Truly
yeah. That
blessed. God is good.
true. I love it. I love that. Because I think it's so important, right, that for grandparents to have that time in the grandchild's life, and also for the parents to be able to call on grandma and grandpa when they want a little time out.
We've had plenty of those.
It's so good. It's so good. So and on the business side, I love the idea of the vision, which obviously you need for your business, but the idea or the thought of, yeah, but how do we accelerate that? Right? How do we really, your words, getting to the essential parts of the business and perhaps even questioning some of the approach? Maybe does that come up? I'm curious about that. Has this exercise made you challenge some of the, maybe not assumptions, but some of the steps that you were planning on taking?
Yes, so far, yes, Mike.
Okay.
And I would say it this way. I mean, it's um, I'll give you an example. We're working on an opportunity now that
Mhm.
it's great opportunity, great potential partnership. And in one of our recent meetings with this potential strategic partner,
Mhm.
um, they threw out a number of what they expected from the relationship that was significantly higher than I know my team was thinking.
Mm.
And what was fascinating, because I was like, wow, okay, it changed. If you're gonna do something, on par with what you've always done or
Mhm.
incrementally better, you're like, oh, we just need to execute better. We need to, tweak this, tweak that, or but if it's all of a sudden 10x or more, and in this case, it was definitely a 10x number, it's like, wait a minute, think about this entirely differently. And the direction we were headed was great if it was 1x,
Right.
but it's not going to work at a 10x. And
Wow.
so it forces you to say, well, what we've done to, again, grow incrementally or kind of do this baseline
Yeah.
execution
Yeah.
um, doesn't work if it's a big, to use a Jim Collins term, big, hairy, audacious goal.
Right.
Um, but now it's in a very compressed time period. They were like, we want to see these results in a year or two. So
Interesting.
and so that's just one example. I mean, but
Yeah.
as we start to look at, it's I know the timestamp on this podcast is not relevant, but we're in that fourth quarter. We're thinking about next year.
Yeah.
And again, kind of stripping back to what's essential, what's going to make a meaningful difference. I think if I have struggled with anything as a leader, which has translated to a struggle for my team, is trying to
Yeah.
do too much,
Mm.
trying to spread things, let's do this,
Yeah.
let's do that, let's go get that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think to your, epic pursuit here, it's hard to be excellent in many things.
Right.
And it's definitely hard to be present when you're spreading yourself thin.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Nor can
Yeah.
you be very intentional.
And then you're curious as to why things aren't getting done. Why aren't
Yeah,
we getting there?
yeah. You're definitely your curiosity has gotten the better of you because you're curious about too many things.
Yes,
But
yes,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, so many things that fascinate me about that, but one drives me back to the Mark Cuban quote, which is, "Be careful not to drown in opportunity." And
yeah,
oftentimes as entrepreneurs and as we're building business, we are somewhat wired to be opportunity seekers, not opportunists. Opportunity
yeah.
seekers, and you see
See things.
opportunity in just about anything, right?
Yeah,
And that can be a challenge when you're like, okay, great, we'll try this, we'll go there. The other thing that jumped out to me in the words that you used when you initially that initial shock and maybe awe of what that 10x plus number was, perhaps some people on your team it struck fear of like oh my gosh, how we can't do that. We're not built to do that. Yet what I heard you say and reflect back, I think is very, very powerful for leaders to set a tone, to be a thermostat in that sense, is to say, well, okay, that's not the number we were thinking of, nor were we positioning and building ourselves. So how can we get there, right? How do we need to approach this differently to hit that number, especially in that compressed time? And it's amazing what you can do, right, when that deadline is compressed versus, protracted, isn't it?
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, when you say it's 10 years from now, there's a
Eh,
lot of things that get in the way of, yeah. But if you tell me it's a year from now or 2 years from now and, it's a must hit thing, that's a whole different way of starting to look at things.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, I mean, I think to your point, the two things jumped out at me. It's like, all right, we're thinking this is kind of a half hearted side of the desk. We'll add this to everything else we're doing type of opportunity.
Yeah.
And you quickly realize, no, this is going to require a full effort. And if we're going to fail, I want to fail with a full effort versus a half hearted effort.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Thank you for dropping that like right out of the gate. That is awesome. And as you're leading teams, which you've done for decades, I'd have to imagine that there have been times, whether it's through market conditions, whether it's through the organizational growth and the challenges that go along with that, or maybe even clients. The challenges that come along with managing and maintaining clients and your team. But was there a time when you had to make a bold decision that perhaps some people questioned, maybe even yourself questioned, but actually ended up changing the trajectory of perhaps your journey as a leader or that of the business?
Yes, Mike.
I thought perhaps there
Well,
maybe one or two, right?
well, I gave I gave a talk in Boston yesterday, and I am fond of telling people if they want me to give a talk, I'm going to talk about the mistakes I made, not tell you how great we are.
Yeah,
I saw somebody give that talk, and that's great, but
yeah,
it's more about them. I want to tell you, all the mistakes I made, hoping that I might help you avoid some of those mistakes
mm,
in the future. And specific to your question, I try and keep the details to protect the innocent and guilty. Um, so I had a situation, I think in business, well, if you want to continue to grow, you're going to get to strategic inflection points.
mhm,
Whole Andy Grove, only the paranoid survive idea, the whole sigmoid curve. And I've been through several strategic inflection points in our business. I would say we're in one now. But several years ago, we were in one.
mhm.
And as you know, Mike, having leaders and good people on your team is everything.
Sure.
And, the flip side of that is you can have people that are not great, and that's not good, but you can
No.
also have good people that are not just a good fit for what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I found myself in a situation where we had made a strategic decision, we had committed to a path. Um, I had a team that was fractured
Mm,
and clearly not on the same page. There were effectively two camps. And I will never forget this meeting for a variety of reasons, but I was having a meeting and I was presenting to the group. And I noticed we were in a big conference room with a big table
yeah.
that everybody was sitting in their respective camp. Now, I don't know that they did that intentionally or just did it out of familiarity or comfort.
Right.
And I remember looking at the group saying in my head, I am going to have to make a decision. And one of the groups at this table won't be able to be here if we're truly going to be committed to this strategic decision and direction. And it was at the time that was just a me decision. And I said, I'm committed to this. And unfortunately, this group of leaders is not.
Mm,
Good people,
yeah.
talented people, but
Yeah.
not committed to where we were going at the time.
Mm,
So there's a lot more that goes into this story, which I'll leave to kind of keep it slightly vague because, but only from a people standpoint, because I want to be respectful. And
of
again,
course.
they were all good people. That wasn't the
Yeah.
issue. It was
Yeah.
we had committed to a strategic decision. We had a group of people that were on board and a group of people that were not.
Yeah.
And so I made a commitment to myself. It took me a couple of months to get the courage.
Yeah.
And I started making changes. And,
Mm,
I sat people down and the people that I had questions to their level of commitment, I was getting the verbal commitment, but I
yeah.
wasn't seeing the action.
Right.
And I remember the first meeting I had, and they said, yeah, you're right. I'm not on board with that. And I said, well, that's great. I really appreciate the honesty, and we're not going to be able to work together anymore.
Yeah.
And they were shocked.
I bet.
My whole team was. They're like, what did you just do? I'm like, they were honest.
Yeah.
They need to do something else with their life because whatever they want to do is great for them, but it's not going to work for us.
Yeah.
And they were shocked. My whole team was shocked. And I had to go through a series of those kind of conversations with people that changed the makeup of the team,
Yeah.
but it aligned us to the strategy that has brought us to where we are today. And I truly believe if I had not done that, not had the courage,
Mm,
would have lost the whole team, Mike. Because the people that were committed were like, well, he's not really committed because he's letting these people distract us. The people
yeah,
that were not committed were never going to commit.
yeah,
And that probably would have left out of, frustration or other opportunities. So,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think the bold decision sometimes you have to make when you get to a strategic inflection point is, if you want to go into another growth curve,
yeah.
are you going to have the courage and the confidence and the conviction
Mm,
to make the tough decision? And again, it's not that people are, it's the old adage in whether it's Jim Collins or EOS, right people, right seat.
yeah,
You can have great people in the wrong seat and and the bus is going to a different destination and they shouldn't even be on the bus anymore. They're still a great person. They just got to
that's
get
right.
on a different bus.
That's right.
Well, that's, I'd say, one example
That
uh,
that's
of a
that's
few.
heavy and that's real. And thank you so much for sharing that, Tim, because
Yeah.
um, that speaks to honestly like a core of leadership and those gut check moments, right? Where you have to often you recognize that there's the risk with the decision you make, which is the risk you were willing to take, right? Because it was a risk if you said, okay, look, I'm just going to try to keep building bridges. I'm just going to ignore the back chatter and the side talk and the proverbial meetings after the meetings after
Oh, yeah.
everyone's done giving you the bobblehead with yes, I'm on board, right? And what that impact would be for your team, and more importantly, the vision of where you were going, because there's no way you would have been able to achieve or reach
No.
the goal with that type of team. So uh, do you recall? I mean, maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but was there a moment? I know you said that it really took you a couple of months, right, to kind of get the courage to then say, "I've got to have the conversation." What was it, or was there a moment that brought you to that? Yeah, I've got to do this,
Yeah,
and here
well,
I
the
am.
moment was in that meeting that day
Was it?
when we had a conversation and I was like, clearly, um, I got a group of people that are on board and want to do this, and I got a group of
Yeah,
people that are not.
yeah,
And I made the decision that day.
hmm
I didn't have the courage to execute on it for 2 more months. And again, I wanted to kind of think it through
sure, sure,
because, anytime you make change in your organization around people, I believe you got to give it context
that's right.
so it's not chaos. And
Yeah,
I wanted
yeah,
to think it through. And at that time, in my business life, I really didn't have anybody to help process that. I did have a business coach that I worked with, and he was the one that helped me process it. But it's like, all right,
hmm
what's the thoughtful, respectful,
yeah,
appropriate way to do this?
yeah,
That's important to me. And
yeah,
but yeah, it was that meeting where I was like, I have to make a decision today, which I did.
hmm
And I'm
hmm
like, I'm going to bet on the people that are committed to the strategy, even
yeah,
though, we got some dynamics there. And I'm going to have a plan of action with the people that are not committed to the strategy, all good people, all
yeah,
talented people.
yeah.
Which again was tough too, because it's like, it's one thing if you have a person in the organization that's not contributing. It's another thing if they're contributing, they're just not contributing in a way that's in alignment with what you're trying to do.
Right, or exactly. What are you contributing to in this
Well, and
moment?
you
Right?
can rationalize, well, they're at least, contributing.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah.
well, in a different, going in a different direction, yes.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
again, where you're trying to go. So then it's like, well, all right.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because what that underlines too is not just you being able to observe where they were and quite visibly, like you said, whether they meant to or not, they were clearly in two different camps visibly.
Yeah.
Um, yet there were choices being made.
Yeah.
You were giving them the roadmap, and there's a choice: do I get on board or do I not? And I remember I had a mentor many years ago who shared this great nugget with me, Tim, that has always served me, and I think is super important as leaders to recognize the power of choice. And in this case, what he said to me is like, Mike, if there's a point where you have a team member who you've engaged with. You show them where the gap is. You show them where you need them to go. You're helping them with the resource. You're doing all the things as a leader to show that you're going to walk side by side, and they still don't. Then there's a point you have to honor their choice.
Yeah.
And that was a powerful phrase for me, honor their choice, because it was no longer in a way like I always felt it was my responsibility. What am I doing that's not getting them on board with this? Where am I falling short? But honestly, like there is a collaboration and partnership in that, right? So
Yeah. No, I love that, Mike, because it is true. They were making a choice, whether it was conscious to them or not.
well, yeah,
They made a
yeah.
choice. And, I have maintained a relationship with the people that eventually departed the organization,
Hmm.
and they all went and did something that was successful and aligned with their talents and
Yeah.
who they are, and everybody was fine.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
were able to move the business forward in a direction at that time, I felt very strongly we needed to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it took, to your point, accepting that they had made a decision,
Mhm.
helping them see that decision,
And that's the other part of it, right? Sometimes they don't.
make them
It's
aware of that decision.
Well, it is because, human nature is it's a lot easier to look down the end of your finger,
Right.
than it is to look in the mirror and say, "Yeah, this is where I am in this," quite honestly,
Yeah,
right? And
that was
and I
true.
would have to imagine too that one of the benefits, although maybe at the time the team that was in the camp to move forward and committed were probably you said at first going, "What did he just do? Oh my gosh," however, there must have been a moment too, they're like, "Hey, he's betting on us."
Yeah, and
Right,
I
he
I
believes,
I
right?
mean, I said that. I mean, I was very clear that it was like, "Hey, I, as the leader,
Yeah,
had to make this decision." And, again, it showed that I was truly committed to the strategy versus just talking about it.
yeah.
And that obviously helped get them on board with, because, the flip side is if I left things, as you said, if I left things where they were, and as I like to say, hope they work themselves out. I early
Yeah,
early as a leader, that was my methodology of uh, problem solving, is let's hope it works itself out.
yeah,
Never does.
no.
Um,
Hope's not a plan.
yeah, and it doesn't work itself out in a pretty way.
Right.
So if I had stayed in that space, though, then I lost credibility with the people that
Mm.
said, this is strategy. And again, I think the people that were not on board were like, well, he's not really committed to it because he's not really doing anything about the fact that we're not committed to it.
Yeah, that's right, that's
And,
right.
leave
Wow.
yourself in a pretty bad spot as a leader. And as John Maxwell says, if you want to know if you're leading, turn around and see if anybody's following. And if you're in that spot, nobody's following. So,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So along those paths then, as you've been growing and your team has been growing and the velocity of the work you mentioned, earlier when we first jumped in, the velocity of the market and all of the different changes, evolutions, technology, whatever it might be, there must have been times when you found your team hitting the wall, of just maxed out of either resource, time, energy to continue to get after your goal, or maybe it was in the strategic direction.
mhm.
Um, what have you found? Maybe there was a time when this happened, or maybe there's something that you do when you find that your team is hitting that wall to help them kind of break through, and still keep focused on what needs to be done. Have you had a situation where you've had to help people get through that wall, or maybe even yourself?
Yes.
Shocking,
Um,
maybe.
well, yeah, maybe a few times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe I would encapsulate the question this way. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up.
It's a great phrase from racing. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
it is. And that's why I figured it was an appropriate reference point. You know, the pace of change is
Mhm.
rapid. It's easy to get reactionary. It's easy to get caught up in the chaos.
Yeah.
And I think the only way for me to, and this is taking me a long time to learn, because I think early in my leadership, I would double down on the chaos
Mm.
and pace. Now it's no, you got to slow down. You
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
slow everything down. Um, and now, obviously, to your point, you still have to keep the business going. So it's not like you stop,
Right. Right.
uh, and you can't stop what you're doing, but you have to slow down the
Hmm.
process of
Hmm.
seeing the situation for what it is and then making a decision about how you're going to pivot. And
Yeah.
my partner is much better at this than I am. I think you also have to be not emotionally attached
Mm.
to um, either the outcome of what you see, the situation, the person, whatever it is, in order to take a pragmatic view. So yeah, I mean, we've hit lots of walls. Again, I think it tends to be trying to do too much, mission drift,
Yeah.
trying to appease too many people at one time.
Mm.
Fear, I think, is a huge aspect
Hmm.
that creates a pretty big wall. And again, the only way I have found to really, and sometimes that's hard. It's hard for, hard charging driver like myself to tell myself, no, we actually have to slow down and go fast.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and then rationalizing where do you find the time to do that? Because there's all this chaos that needs attention.
well, that's the thing, right? I mean, what you're saying there is really, you know, how do you slow down when the tornado or that chaos is not, right? And the demands are still there, right? The pressure is still there. So, because that's the reality in the situations. We don't get to hit pause and tell everyone, hey, we're just going to slow down for a little bit to kind of gather ourselves back up. So we'll get back to you, right? There's still the priorities. There's still the expectations. So, I'm curious. Could you unpack maybe a little bit, or maybe how your partner
Well, I mean,
has
I think
has done this, like, practically, like, what is a way, what is one way that you use to try to get
sure,
your team or yourself to kinda slow down? I'd love to kinda get into a little bit of the mechanical of how you've
sure, yeah.
applied that, you
I mean,
know?
I think there's a few ways. Like, I mean, um, one is, and again, to your point, it's when I say slow down, I don't mean like shut the whole organization down. Okay.
Right. Right.
But there are people, leaders. So I'm kind of saying I, as a leader, my partner, a
Mhm.
leadership team,
Mhm.
individual leader have to slow down. So how do you do that? Well, if you have a good team that is, the trains are running on time or close to on time, that doesn't mean you as a leader can't step back. And for my partner Audrey and I, it's, we do that together because
Mhm.
we have a very different perspective and approach, and we kind of feed off of that. So I always say, the net effect of our slowing down and reflecting, um, yields a really good result.
Yeah.
And I am that way. I've always needed somebody to bounce things off of, whether it was a business coach or now my partner or my wife. I couldn't just sit there in a room and, slow down and think things through
Right.
myself. I need to kind of talk them through. Um, so that's one practical way is literally just making the commitment. We call them strategic days where Audrey and I are like, nope, we're devices are off or they're in a certain time window and we're off. And we have a list that we have intentionally built together.
Nice.
And if we're not trying to get 50 things done, what are the two
Right.
things that in a half a day, if we could solve for or gain agreement on or get clarity for where we want to go,
Yeah.
that'll move us forward faster. But we've got to slow down to do that. We can't
Yeah.
just pass each other in the hall or, hey, you got a minute.
Right.
You got to get out. You got to slow down. You got to turn off the
Mhm.
technology. You got to tell people this is the block. So that's one way.
Yep.
I would tell you another way is having people take time off.
Mm.
And again, I think a hard charging driving personality tends to go, 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 go. And sometimes you've just got to stop and
Yeah.
take time off, turn your head off, turn it off or turn it off as much as you can. I struggle to
Mhm.
completely
Maybe
turn it.
maybe just turn the volume down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. From a
Yeah.
10 to a 2.
Yeah. Right. Right.
um, so but I also think that's a very practical thing. And we have a
Yeah.
situation now where Audrey and I agreed and we had a chat with one of our leaders and we're like, you're going to take this time off
Mm.
and you're going to shut it down mentally, and the rest of us are going to take care of what needs to be taken care of during that time because you
Right.
need that clarity break.
Yeah.
Those are just two practical examples. I think, from a strategic planning perspective with a team,
Yeah.
you can take dedicated time. Like I said, we run on EOS, so we have a very rhythmic way of meeting and what we're accomplishing. We're getting
Yeah.
ready for our annual in a couple weeks, which is 2 days again out of the office. We have to slow down.
Yeah.
Um, the rest of the team, which we're blessed to have a great team, is going to be running the business day to day. So it's not like, we'll have time to check email, talk to people.
Yeah.
But if we're like trying to do our day job and then try and be strategic and thoughtful and reflective, it doesn't work for me.
Right.
So,
Right. Right. Well,
um,
that's the whole,
yeah,
what often happens. You get trapped, in the business instead of on the business, but then I want to
yeah.
be on the business, but I can't get away from being in the business because I don't have the team. And you end up,
And it's
six,
a
8 months.
constant battle. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what I hear in that too is just is the intentionality.
Yeah.
Right? Just the intentionality of the actions and the behaviors, the words that are being used, and what people are seeing, and what you and your partner are modeling, which is powerful,
Yeah.
absolutely powerful. So, you know, eh, I've I've known this about you for years, Tim, that you were a student, right? You were incredibly curious, always learning. We
Curious.
always talk about different books, right? Yeah, I mean,
Very curious.
your curiosity is one of your greatest strengths, in my opinion.
Well, thank
Uh,
you.
and especially from a leadership perspective, you're well read in there, yet also well lived in the experiences. So, is there a leadership principle that you lean into that continues to serve you? That's like that go to when in good times or bad, but there's the principle that is always like your guiding light as a leader.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say there's a few, and
Okay,
they're
so pick your favorite child.
yeah, well, I was gonna say, that's what I'm going through my mind doing right now, Mike. I was thinking about this. I think, and I wouldn't say it's changed over time, but I would say the enduring principle, if you will, is, in my mind, in business, and what I'm
Mm-hmm,
about to say, I'm not saying everybody will agree with, but I think you really have to be focused on the people in
mm-hmm,
your organization, the experience that you are providing them,
mm-hmm.
um, for the contribution they're making. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that is people, they spend most of their waking hours at work,
Yep.
whether it's in the office or remote, but they're working. And I've always believed from a leadership principle that, and again, there are people that would say this is not accurate, and I've learned there's a balance here, but you got to put your people as a priority, not at the expense of the business, not at the
Right.
expense of the results of the business. I am not saying that it's all
Right.
about people no matter what, but I see too often businesses are run for a very bottom line orientation, and people are like kind of just a part of the machine,
The cogs in the wheel. Yes.
cogs in the
Yeah.
wheel. And I just think if you can make sure you take good care of your people, and what I mean by that is clarity. I don't mean like,
Mhm.
ping pong tables and free beer. I mean, clarity of expectations, a pathway to grow, invest in their development, a strong culture at the workplace.
Mhm.
Yes, doing some things that show care. And, I went and spoke to one of our younger employees who's in a new role, and I gave her feedback today about, hey, I've been hearing great things about the work you're doing. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the approach you're taking. I mean, she lit up,
Yeah.
but it was sincere,
Right.
but I didn't have to go say that. And then I was out,
Right.
in town, and I ran into somebody that's part of our organization who's really new. And he looked at me like, I don't think he knows who I am. And I said, hey, and he was like, oh, but, I think that matters a
Yeah.
lot, the principle. And I don't know that you call people first, because again, people will be like, wow, the business, you can't do things at the detriment of the business, and you can't, take care of a person at the detriment of the rest of the organization.
Mhm.
But when I'm saying this, and I'm maybe not terribly articulate in it, is just be intentional and deliberate about how you treat your people. Um, and it's the little things a lot of times. I like to do handwritten notes. I like to just, go see people and, have a conversation with them. And then we do things. We had a bunch of pastries and stuff. We had Wednesdays in our office is when everybody's here, which is great. I wish everybody was here every day of the week. But
More pastries.
I've adapted. Well, yeah, we all have health problems. We don't want to do that. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the foundational principle
Yeah.
for me is,
Yeah.
um, because ultimately in a business, it's people that get results, not,
Mhm.
spreadsheets, or
Yeah.
ideas. It's the people
Yeah.
that have to execute on those ideas and
Yeah.
get the results. So
Well, it is, and what is also the culmination of, Tim, when I hear that, is something I really believe with all of my heart, is that the experience that either our team members have with us, we're having with them, the success of the business or their lack of, are rarely ever made in the big moments. My
right,
my belief is that there are choices we make in what I call micro moments, right?
very much.
Each and every day where we have a choice to go, I can write that note, or I can just go ahead and send another email to a prospect or whatever it might be. I can have that conversation with that young employee and change their day and how they're operating. Um, I like to call those. Experience wakes. If you think about a boat going through water,
Yeah,
it creates these wakes, and as leaders, and team members as well. It's not just for leadership, but humans that we all have and create experience wakes around us. And if we were more mindful of that, I bet we would probably act and speak a bit differently with those around us, right? And
yeah.
being more intentional.
I mean,
So
I feel like, a thriving person, a healthy person needs purpose. And
mm,
part of what you can do in a workplace is help them have a purpose, find their purpose,
yeah,
apply their skills to that purpose, and see that in the greater purpose of the business itself.
yeah.
And that happens, to your point, Mike, in the micro moments.
Mhm, 100%. And Tim, I mean, there's been great purpose. I'll keep playing on that there. In our conversation today, I can't thank you enough for just the wisdom and insight and the vulnerability and transparency, my friend, and what you shared in some of your experiences, because those are the things that we learn from, right?
Mhm.
And you
Yeah,
said it earlier on. I mean,
you learn
people like
from your success.
yeah, I mean, let me speak about my highlight reel,
Yeah.
but it's really the bloopers that we learn the most from and that, you know, can really deliver value. Is there anything that we didn't cover, that you wanna hit on or mention before we wrap up?
I mean, I really, again, just say thanks for the opportunity to be with you and have the conversation. It's a honor and a treat, and really admire what you're doing with your work. It's been
Thank you.
fun to work with you over the last several years. I see a bottle of wine in the background there that I might have in my.
Yeah.
I haven't opened it yet, Mike.
It's well,
Actually,
you
I
may
was
want
looking
to.
at it recently. I was like, how do I get into this without destroying the bottle? And I'll just like do a quarter ounce and get the wine out and keep the bottle.
You'll be that's exactly right. That's what I've done here. It's a beautiful bottle, by the way. Beautiful wine as well.
Oh yeah, well, I
Gifts is
just read an
it
article about that vineyard.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. It's a phenomenal place, and I'd be happy to share more of that with you, guys, as well. But listen, for those of you who have been tuning in, I hope that you have been able to really take in the nuggets, the thoughts, the insights, the experience that Tim has shared with us. I'll go through a couple of things that I picked up and learned today that I think are I'm going to carry with me is just, the courage to strategy and to people, right? That opening story that Tim shared about, sometimes as a leader, we have to step into courage and have the courage and confidence and conviction to do what's right by the business, by the people, but more importantly, the people who were committed to the mission at hand, yet also take a measured approach, right? We heard Tim say he made that decision in the moment, yet it took him 2 months to think through how he wanted to present that. Is it the right way? Instead of being reactionary, he chose to respond, which is powerful, and to bet on the people who are committed to where the team is going. The idea of slowing down to go fast, right? And minding your emotions that are tied to the outcomes and the people, especially when the business, the environment, a situation gets heated, gets charged, gets emotional. Do you have the presence to be able to help slow your team down? And whether that is by having a team you can rely on, as Tim was saying, that can keep the business moving forward while he and his partner can step back to work on the business, or even tapping a colleague on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, we're gonna help you out here, and you're gonna take a pit stop. I know you may want to stay out here in the race, but we need you to come in and pit for a little bit and refuel, and we've got your back." Powerful to let people know that you have their back and that you're taking care of them and the business at the same time. And I loved, again, your focus, Tim, again, is so much around people being the priority, helping them understand the pathways to growth, their resources, the opportunities to contribute to the team, and more importantly, benefit the business, is absolutely powerful. So no question why the Charlotte business community's recognized you for decades. Again, for our viewers and listeners, please, feel free to share some of your thoughts in the comments below. Take these away, put them into practice. Thank you for joining us. And as always, remember that your best is yet to come.